Our meeting. Welcome to the ordinary council meeting of Wyndham City Council this Tuesday, the 4th of February 2020. Before we continue with the meeting this evening, I would firstly like to ask Councillor Barlow to introduce Tricia Williams, who will lead the acknowledgement of country.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Fellow councillors, council staff and members of the gallery, I have the greatest pleasure introducing Tricia Williams, along with Brian Campbell, who's a member of our committee, and Tricia's daughter, Imogen. Tricia is a proud and active member of the First Nation community in Wyndham and has been a strong advocate and activist on their behalf. Her initial involvement with council was in relation to progressing reconciliation as a member of the local Aboriginal network. In 2016, Tricia was invited to be a member of Wyndham's Reconciliation Advisory Committee, which she co-chairs with me. This committee, as you may recall, was responsible for guiding the development of our first ever Reconciliation Action Plan, which includes the council undertake an acknowledgement of country ceremony at an ordinary council meeting each year. Tricia Williams has also had a key role in the Collinwada Nargle Committee, working in partnership with council to bring to fruition the recently opened Wongarul Durham Centre. I'd like to please welcome, if you could all please welcome Tricia Williams to lead the acknowledgement of country. Thank you, Tricia.
Okay, thank you for the invite tonight. The acknowledgement of country. In the spirit of reconciliation, we acknowledge and recognise the peoples of the Kulin Nation as the first custodians of the land upon which we are building our homes and lives. We pay respect to elders and the diversity of Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander communities past, present and future. May our meeting today reflect Wyndham's collective commitment to learning from our past and continuation of the cultural and spiritual legacy of our First Nations people. Mr Mayor, I'd just like to say a few words. I am Palawa, descent of the Tasmanian Aboriginal. I say descent because I was born in Albury, New South Wales and raised in SA as ward of the state. I am a part of the stolen generation. I moved to Wyndham City with my family in 2003. I currently sit on two committees, Collingwood Gull and Wyndham Reconciliation Advisory Committee. Through these two committees, I'm actively involved in advocating for our Aboriginal community. The Wyndham Reconciliation Advisory Committee is unique. We are Aboriginal and non-Aboriginal community members working together with one vision to assist and advise an effective reconciliation action plan to ensure the well-being of our Aboriginal community within Wyndham City and the Council. We have been involved at every stage of Council's Innovate Reconciliation Action Plan. We advised in its development, supported its adoption and walked with Council through its implementation over the last 2 years. We are now preparing for the next stage in our shared journey towards reconciliation. Some of the achievements that the Reconciliation Advisory Committee particularly celebrate with Council are almost 100 staff have completed Aboriginal cultural awareness training, Council Indigenous staff mentoring other Indigenous staff, an increase in Aboriginal employment at Council, including affirmative action to create an Aboriginal youth work position, and so many other achievements over the last 4 years, we can't even say. As a member of Collingwood and Nagal Committee, in collaboration with Wyndham City Council, we've been involved in every stage of designing and building the Wongarul Durham Centre. This is a beautiful centre built in Wyndham Vale. It is a place where Aboriginal community can safely grow and practice their culture. We also share this space with Balim Balim Early Learning Centre and Yaluk Community Centre. When I came to Wyndham City in 2003, I asked as an Aboriginal person, where is our culture, where is our language? Moving forward to 2020, as an Aboriginal community member, I can see our culture, our language being spoken, an Aboriginal community that has grown and will continue to grow with strength, pride and unity. Thank you.
So much, Tricia, for that acknowledgement of country, but also commenting on the progress that we're making here at Wyndham City. So thank you and great work. I'd also like to thank Councillor Barlow for his co-chairing and his ongoing role with the Reconciliation Advisory Committee as well. So thank you, Councillor Barlow. Okay, we'll now proceed to the next item on the agenda, and I ask for all councillors and staff to stand for prayer. We pray for guidance in the council's decision making to achieve the best outcome for the people of Wyndham. Please be seated. I'd also like to acknowledge members of the gallery, press, councillors and staff here this evening for the OCM. Some of you may have seen the notices in the foyer, but for those of you who didn't, I would like to make you aware of the following. This meeting is being recorded and live streamed on the internet. The recording will be archived and made available on Council's website. And whilst all care has been taken to ensure your privacy is maintained, please be aware that your presence may be recorded. Item number 2, apologies and requests for leave. Madam CEO, do we have any apologies or requests for leave for this meeting?
Thank you, Mr Mayor. There are indeed some applications for leave, but also some corrections from this current agenda. So, Mr Mayor, with your indulgence, I'll just run through those now. In the agenda, Councillor Villagonzalo was seeking leave of absence from the 5th to the 19th of February 2020 inclusive. However, has since advised he will no longer be taking this leave, so that's been withdrawn. Councillor Mia Shaw has also advised that she'll be taking leave of absence between the 5th to the 12th of April 2020 inclusive, and also Councillor Tony Hooper has advised that he's an apology for tonight's meeting.
Thank you very much, Madam CEO. As there are requests for leave and also an apology noted and the revocation of leave, I will now ask for a mover of item number 2. Councillor Maynard and Councillor Gibbons will be the seconder. All those in favour? Against? Carried. Item number 3, any declarations of conflict of interest or items containing personal interest in any item of the agenda. Councillors, yes, Councillor Marcus.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. In the confidential agenda, I do have a conflict of interest in one of those items.
Thank you very much, Councillor Marcus. Are there any other councillors wishing to disclose any conflicts? With there being none, I will now proceed to a vote. All those, do we move on? Sorry. Item number 4, confirmation of minutes of previous meeting. The motion reads as follows, that the minutes of the number 1 ordinary council meeting held on Tuesday the 3rd of December 2019 as prepared and circulated be confirmed, and 2, the special council meeting held on Tuesday the 17th of December 2019 as prepared and circulated be confirmed. Can I please get a move for the item? Councillor Khan and Councillor Maynard will be the seconder. I will now put it to a vote. All those in favour? Against? Carried. Thank you. Items number 6, Officers' Report 6.2, Strategic Report 6.2.1, the Quarter 2 Financial Management Report. The report is outlined on pages 8 to 10, recommendations on page 8 with the attachments on pages 11 to 30. Do I have a mover for this item? Councillor McAliney. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Khan. Councillor McAliney is the mover. Do you wish to speak? You have 5 minutes.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. This report provides an interim update of the financial results of Council and expected outlook for the full financial year. The report is based on 5 months of Council operations to the end of November 2019. The commentary focuses on Council's underlying revenue and expense categories. This excludes some revenue categories such as grants received for capital projects and assets that transferred to Council from developers. The focus on underlying results is important as it allows us to consider the key operational drivers for this Council and consider decisions and actions we need to take to ensure we can continue to provide services in a sustainable manner. The report is detailed and steps through the key variances of each line item of revenue and expense. Tonight, I would like to provide some context around 2 key areas of Council's operations that are driving the financial outcomes for this year, which I consider as important. First is the RDF, our TIP operation for which annual revenue forecast has been revised downwards. The RDF revenue budget was based on an increase in waste tonnages through the return of a major commercial customer. These customers left the RDF when there was uncertainty about the RDF taking waste, when delays were experienced in obtaining an EPA works approval in 2017. New agreements were established with these customers, and there was a reasonable expectation they would return to the RDF at a level of their previous tonnage. This has not been the case because these customers have subsequently negotiated lower landfill prices, or they have now spread their risk of landfill availability across several landfill suppliers. The RDF is subject to intense competition from the MRL landfill in Ravenhall, which is much larger and able to offer lower prices. Council is actively monitoring the market conditions in the waste and cycling industry, noting that the RDF is a key asset for this council. Our planning and our budget processes are focused on ensuring that we can manage the current market pressures in a fiscally responsible manner without any adverse impacts on our core service obligations. Our strategic intent with respect to the RDF remains unchanged from what has previously been endorsed through this chamber. The second relates to our aged and disability services. The employee payments and provisions, we are transitioning to a new service delivery model. This, of course, is on the back of changes to the Commonwealth funding model for these services. It is important to note, while we go through a changing model, that the Commonwealth does not provide any funding to enable transition out of these activities. The cost falls, unfortunately, on this council and no doubt many other councils. Our primary concern has been to ensure we transition in as smooth as a manner as possible and that our vulnerable residents do not fall through the cracks. We also need to manage our adverse impacts on our staff as we transition out of these services. Our staff working in the aged care space provide vital services to our most vulnerable in our community, and it is vitally important that they are considered during this period of uncertainty. To manage this uncertainty around the NDIS transition processes and client numbers, we have maintained our current workforce for a longer period than was initially anticipated. Transitioning out of the home care services means that council will incur a one-off exit and redundancy expense for some staff. These costs estimates have been provided for full year forecast numbers and may change as we are provided with more information from the Commonwealth. Council will continue to assess the transitional impacts as more information becomes available, and I hope to provide a further update in the Q3 report. Thank you, Mr Mayor.
Thank you very much, Councillor McElhinney. Are there any other speakers in relation to this item? Councillor Marcus.
Thank you. I would like to touch on a couple of areas highlighted in the report which I'm really very concerned about. Firstly, some comments regarding the lower revenue outlook that has been flagged for the infringements and our RDF operations. Whilst I strongly hold the view that we cannot look at infringements purely as an income generator for council, there will always be the need to monitor compliance. I am pleased to say that this revenue is lower, which means that we are seeing good engagement from sections of our community, particularly in the areas of local law and parking compliance. I hope that with more education, this income stream will be lower each quarter. Council, of course, has the legal responsibility to ensure there is compliance with local laws, rules or obligations. Both council and the community have a shared responsibility to protect how our municipality looks and to maintain community safety. With the introduction of the Wyndham enforcement policy just prior to the financial year, there has been a continued focus on behavioural change. I have to say, when I read Q2 year-end forecast, and the full year forecast reflects an operating deficit of 33.9 million, which is unfavourable. This, as a business person, has concerned me greatly. Times are very tough out there. The logistic companies are putting off staff or putting their staff back to 4 days, and what they're saying, if we're not moving it, it means we're not selling it. And I think this is something that council will have to take into consideration. I have been advised our focus will continue on high-risk locations for fines.
Councillor Marcus, you have 1 more minute.
Oh my God, well, I'm not going to get through it. Such as parking compliance around schools, truck parking, I'll just have to leave that. So with regards to the RDF, as Councillor McElhinney has said, the market dynamic in the waste and recycling industry is very complex at the moment. Our ability to withstand some short to medium term effect fluctuations will be important, and this will be very important consideration as we finalise our budget settings for the 2021 financial year. I note the higher revenue that has been forecast for supplementary rates. This is evidence of continued growth in our municipality, and I look forward to the outcomes of the current rating system. I'll leave the rest of that one and just finish by saying that I look forward to the next budget quarter, and hopefully the results will be favourable, and we must look at our expenses and cut where necessary. Also, I'd like to note the proactive management of our Encore Centre and cultural centres, especially the Encore Centre. The staff at the Encore Centre are brilliant, and I am advised by people organising events there that these staff members make their job much easier, and I'm hopeful that more events will stay in Wyndham, which will create a lot more money for our economy and for this council. Sorry, I couldn't do the rest.
Thank you very much, Councillor Marcus, for that contribution. Are there any other councillors? Councillor Shaw.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. There are just a few things that I want to cover off this evening. So firstly, our Capital Works program, and again, as we know, we've got another big one with a number of important projects, and this has been raised before, and I think by myself and you at times, Mr Mayor, that we have better signage at some of our Capital Works projects to advise our residents and ratepayers what we are doing in the investments we are making in this city. Footpath upgrades, park upgrades, tree plantings and Werribee CBD tree lighting and tree surrounds are just some examples where I'd like to see more regular and prominent signage of our investments. Similar to Councillor Marcus, great to see the extra and unexpected $258,000 of revenue since this council took active management of Encore and the Wyndham Cultural Centre. It was a decision that I supported and is paying some dividends now, and I agree, thanks to our wonderful staff who do terrific work at these venues and have helped make this really happen. And finally, as an Irrimu Ward Councillor, I'm disappointed to see the funding for the Manor Lakes Town Centre Road Reserve delayed. Unfortunately, this is due to the developer taking council to the Supreme Court of Victoria, and because this will go before the court in April, I will be careful in what I say, but this has been a long process that we've embarked on, and one that is needed, in my opinion, for our Manor Lakes and Wyndham Vale community to ensure better access to the train station for our local community in that area. If you know the area, live in it and have to travel in and around it every day, we believe this is an important easement for our current and growing population to help alleviate congestion and provide better access through the town centre. Unfortunately, at a cost to ratepayers, we are currently awaiting the trial and ultimately a Supreme Court decision. And this is not just trial costs, but there are costs associated with delays like this one, which include livability. Thank you, Mr Mayor.
Well said, Councillor Shaw. Thank you for that. Any other councillors that wish to speak? Councillor Carr, you have 3 minutes.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I think it has been budgeted 152 million and we have actually recovered $149 million in revenue, so it's pretty close. I think you can't get it closer than that. So revenue is, as far as travelling, is okay in second quarter. I think it's just the second quarter after, once the budget start, people start paying rate, so it takes a bit of a time. So I'm very happy with that. The revenue is all on track. And I think Council would like to highlight the Council have taken a very good approach in relations to expenditure, which is important now, seeing that how much money we're going to get and how we're spending it. So I can see that now the Council have got underspending, and underspending has been now on the areas such as employee benefits. So you can see that now $1 million underspent in the salaries due to the number of reasons and reductions in a department, aged care, aged and disability home support services. So that offset by around $800,000, and also the material and services, which is been again a saving almost. So you can see that $4.2 million, which is budgeted to the budget. And also though, council operations, the council have expected to $170,000 for the Lead West membership. So we're no longer now committing to the membership. So we're saving $170,000, which is great. And also, though, now we're going to be do a posters and a printing and signage stationery differently, which will save us almost $350,000, which is positive outcome for the council. So I'm really glad the way the council is spending the money, tidying up the things, and I think that really going to help it. And we know that why deficit has been occurred due to the RDF, as other people have said it. So it's a second quarter anyway. It's a 6 month past, as in first quarter and second quarter. So look forward to see the third quarter and fourth. The waste tracking is pretty good. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you very much, Councillor Khan. Are there any other speakers on this item? Okay, there being no more speakers, we'll now proceed to a vote. All those in favour? Against? Carried. Item 6.3, Policy and Advocacy. Item 6.3.1, the amendment to the Protected Disclosure Policy. The report is contained on pages 31 to 33. Recommendation is outlined on page 31 with attachments on pages 34 to 49. Do I have a mover for the motion? Councillor McAliney. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Maynard. Councillor McAliney, do you wish to speak on the item?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Just 5 minutes.
Just briefly, this policy is a requirement from IBAC, that is the Independent Broad-Based Anti-Corruption Commission, and all councils are required to have this. The amended policy, interest policy, recognises the importance of fraud and corruption control management in corporate governance, and by implementing some of the changes here will be best practice in preventing and managing fraud and corruption in this council. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor McAliney. Do we have any other speakers on this item? There being no more speakers, we'll now proceed to a vote. All those in favour? Against? Carried. Item 6.4, Strategic and Town Planning. Item 6.4.1, the Planning Scheme Amendment C241, Public Acquisition Overlay. The report is outlined on pages 40 to 47 with the recommendation on page 40. Do I have a mover for the item? Councillor Shaw. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Barlow. Councillor Shaw, do you wish to speak on the item?
Thank you.
5 minutes.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I won't need 5 minutes. Just following on from my comments earlier, I think this is has been an excellent piece of work from our council officers, a very important piece of work for this council, this public acquisition overlay, to ensure that we can assist to alleviate congestion and ensure that we have the appropriate infrastructure that we need to support our growing city. We do not take public acquisitions lightly. There's a lot of work that goes in them. There is a lot of discussion that goes with them. So I think it's, I know this one has also been one. I think it's a really important piece of work, and I'd like to thank council officers for the work that they've done on it. I do think, though, it is something that council, not just this term, but in future terms, will have to continue to consider public acquisition overlays to actually support the infrastructure that we will need to support our city, because we know in some areas that we just don't have what we need to do what we need to do. And there's one in particular, which I'm sure council officers will be happy to hear me talk about, on the corner of Duncan's and Sinnott Street. It'd be great to get a public acquisition overlay so we could have a dedicated left-hand turning lane off Sinnott Street into Duncan's Road. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
You're on fire tonight, Councillor Shaw. Thanks for that contribution. Do I have any other speakers on the item? Councillor Maynard.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'll be short. Just to say that this again shows council officers and council both being proactive in actively looking to the future to provide for the needs of this community. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you very much, Councillor Maynard. Councillor Khan, did you have your hand up? Yes, you wish to speak. Yeah.
Mr. Mayor, look, it's good to see that now we're doing a Boundary Road and Derrimut Road intersection upgrade, which is affecting 11 and 10 dirty roads in Tarnit 917. This is a really interesting see that, because we do not want someone get killed and then everybody's just crying it, because this is immediate required on a Boundary Road and Derrimut Road. So I think council have done a very good job understanding. A lot of people made a complaint, they're sending emails to us, and I've seen that, you know, when you if there's a road work happening, people are actually can't turn just from Doti Road to the left going to the Derrimut Road. It just really it was urgent needed. I think council have done really great work. It's going to happen. Also, though, the Leaks Road between the Raymond Road is where the BP is. It's actually very small. It needed widening. I think I'm glad that the council have identified now finally, and it's happening now. Almost work is been, some work is already happening, and it will happen in future. So I'm really glad to have seeing that. By the way, good to see them, Mr. Mayor. This is a growth areas where a lot of people moving in. That is where we can see that now, community can see that now how important council's vision is, and where's council putting this money. It's just not the way already public, already the population is being established, is the where population has not been established. It's a really, really good future reason in terms of spending money and making sure before the people get to the roads and that get done. I'm looking forward to see that, all these 1, 2, 3 items get tick off, and that will really make the townette great again, because it's really needed good infrastructure. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you very much, Councillor Khan. Are there any other speakers on this item? Nope. There being no more, we'll now proceed to a vote. All those in favour? Against? Carried. Item 6.5, other reports. 6.5.1, the Truganina East Early Learning Centre, the lease to Best Chance Child and Family Care Network Incorporated. The report is outlined on pages 48 to 52 with the recommendation on page 49 and the attachment on 53. Do I have a mover for the item? Councillor Shaw. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Khan. Councillor Shaw, do you wish to speak on the item?
No, I think it's pretty straightforward.
Excellent. Are there any other speakers? Councillor Khan.
So, Mayor, look, I think it's good to see that we're giving a lease for 5 by 5 terms, and that is going up to 2030. That's a 10, and puts the confidence the operator who's taking this lease, so they can plan their forecast and the budgets and the staff. But also, though, what a great example of council supporting what the city needs it. So 85 babies born per week, definitely need more childcare centres and learning centres. So this is just the way of shows that how we are supporting the lease, and it's going to help the community. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you very much, Councillor Khan. Yes, Councillor Marcus.
Yes, I'm really pleased to see and support this one. This morning, the report is that more people are now not working because they can't afford childcare fees, and it's something I think that we've got to look at to make sure that we can provide these facilities to help people, and many need to have 2 jobs, but there's a very large percentage of, which was reported this morning, there's a very large percentage of mothers now who cannot work because they cannot afford childcare fees, their wages being taken out in childcare fees. So I think that's something else we need to look at. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor Marcus. Any other speakers? There being no more, we'll now proceed to a vote. All those in favour? Against? Carried. Item 6.5.2, Assembly of Councillors. The report's on page 54, as well as the recommendation with attachments on pages 55 to 60. Do I have a mover? Councillor Maynard. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Gibbons. Councillor Maynard, do you wish to speak to the item?
It's self-explanatory.
Thank you, Councillor Maynard. Are there any other speakers? There being none, we'll now proceed to a vote. All those in favour? Against? Carried. Item 7, notices of motion, which there are nil. Item 8, council seal. 8.1, the awarding of contract C2162/19, Wyndham 2021 playground upgrades. The report is outlined on pages 61 to 67 with the recommendations on page 62. Do I have a mover for the resolution? Councillor Shaw. Councillor McAloney, second. Councillor Shaw, do you wish to speak in favour?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'll be brief. It's great to see the awarding of this contract for this very significant capital works program, all of the upgrading of our parks and some of our open spaces that we've been doing through this. We've been getting great feedback from people in our community. It's been a wonderful investment, and our staff have done a terrific job on this. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Shaw. Any other speakers on the item? Councillor Butler.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Look, I fully support this. I think it's great because a lot of the playgrounds have really needed a good upgrade. Some of the play areas have been there for 10, 15, 20 years, and so there's a lot to do that. There's also another item that I'd like to flag now, and it probably won't be part of this upgrade, but for future upgrades, is that historically for decades we've put playground equipment and usually a basketball ring with a concrete pad for kids to play basketball, and not only just kids, but you see older age teenagers and young people playing there as well. In that, I would again, and I know I've already put this into the system, but I would like to see a concrete pad with netball rings being put up. Netball happens to be the biggest single sport that girls and women play in Australia. And yet, historically, we've never put netball rings up, and I think that that's something seriously we should look at. Not going back and retrofitting upgrades already, but for any future playgrounds, to actually new ones that are occurring in the vast growth areas across Wyndham. That if you're going to put in a basketball ring, you should put in a netball ring as well. And I look forward to seeing that implemented in future parks.
Thank you very much, Councillor Butler. I agree with you. Councillor Marcus, you wish to speak? Yes.
Yes, I'm really pleased to see this because it's vitally important that we have good parks, and I'm pleased to see that we're putting in better swings and slides and something a little bit more innovative, which I brought up some time ago, which I had seen in Moonee Valley and Maribyrnong, and so to have them here. When you look at the overhead of our developments, and I said this at the Green Living series on Saturday, what concerns me, and I'd like a policy put in place, I'm like Henry now, that we cannot give a permit unless there is room for 2 trees to be planted, because when you look at all the developments, there is just nothing for the kids to play in. So it's vitally important that we have these fantastic parks that the kids can go to. And it's good to see that the landscape and design, because trees, and I think Councillor Villagonzalo will agree with me, trees are vitally important. And so to get the kids out in wonderful parks, to be innovative, and someone was sitting at the table tonight saying, remember we used to play with mud cakes. And the kids have got to get out there and they've got to explore and really do something more exciting. So thank you to the council officers for listening to what we've said, that we want better parks for our residents in this city.
Thank you very much, Councillor Marcus, for that contribution. Okay, are there any other speakers for the item? Councillor Khan.
Just a technical on the points now. It's good to see that 5 people have applied for these tenders, and which was 1.3 million to range half or almost $578,000, which is different scenarios. Now, good to see that now the tenders, this panel was selected. These are Safe Play Australia and all these companies. Now we can see them now when we walk in the parks. And I've said several times and have a meeting with the CEO in the past. I visited Adelaide, and I saw that a lot of parks now having a gym. Like if you go on Gold Coast City Council, you see that now the on footpath or some of the parks, you have different playground equipment, so you can just have your kids playing in a park, but also the parents can actually enjoy. Otherwise, it's become just a grass with a nice lovely grass, and the kids will get bored, they play. But what parents will do, I think this is really great to see that now we are putting a bit of innovative, and I look forward to see that what kind of equipment we can put. But I would highly encourage now, put some healthy equipment so people can actually, health is important. So just not the kids, the parents also can enjoy the parks. Otherwise it looks like it's a boring playground. But we'd love to see that now in future. Once this entire contract is based on over 3 years, $4.4 million, and that will be really making our city like an innovative city. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you very much, Councillor Khan. Are there any other speakers on the item? There being none, I'll now proceed to a vote. All those in favour of the resolution? Against? Carried. Item 9, contract summary. There are nil. Item 10, questions with notice from the public gallery. Madam CEO.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. We do have a number of questions this evening. The first questions being submitted are from Cherie Barber. Is Cherie in the gallery? Hi, thanks, Cherie. So the first question is, how does council inform community members about their ability to have input regarding council decisions that affect them? For example, the annual budget and draft master plans. So Mr Mayor, through you, there's quite a detailed response that we'll provide to you in writing, but I will summarise it for the benefit of the gallery. We have a community engagement framework in place that council has adopted. It really determines how we engage and consult with residents. It's something that this council really prides itself on, and we're always looking at ways to continually improve the way we engage with residents, particularly in established communities, but also in some of our newly establishing communities as well, where we've got growth areas and new residents moving into areas. So we run focus groups. We do a lot of work on the loop, which is another question you've asked about as well. So with the loop, you've asked how we know that's been successful. So we're currently going through a comprehensive evaluation of the loop at the moment to gain feedback and understand how we can improve it moving forward. But as I said, we use a range of different methods, and they're all outlined on our webpage, as well as being the sort of initial source of information, the loop. And also we have our community engagement framework that's an endorsed position of council. But I will provide more detail to you in writing that will give you all of the links to those documents as well that might be of interest. Thank you for your question. I have, Mr Mayor, two more questions this evening, and these are from Arnev, and Arnev's in the gallery this evening, so thank you for being here tonight. Again, Mr Mayor, quite detailed responses to these questions, so I will provide those in writing and just provide a summary in terms of response here this evening. So the first question I will refer, Mr Mayor, with your indulgence, to our Chief Financial Officer, Binder, and this question is, what is Wyndham City Council generating by way of revenue through general rates and charges? Please provide a suburb-wide breakdown of the revenue generated for all suburbs in Wyndham. So, Mr Mayor, I will refer that to our Chief Financial Officer.
Okay. Thank you for your question, Arnav. Rates and charges are a primary source of revenue for council, and we set these in as part of our budget process each year, consistent with the rate cap that's set by the state government. For individual properties, they are determined based on valuations, annual valuations that are conducted by the Valuer General, and that's what we use as the basis of allocation. Our budget for the 2019-20 financial year identified that we would be collecting revenue of around 179 million in total from rates. In terms of the suburb allocation, so Point Cook represents around 22% of that, so around 39 to 40 million comes from Point Cook. Then we've got Werribee, Hoppers Crossing and Tarneet, each of which represent around 15%, so that's around 26 million for each of those suburbs. And then we have Truganina representing around 12%, which is around 21 million. The other suburbs that have in that 3 to 5% range will include Laverton North, Wyndham Vale, Williams Landing and Manor Lakes. Quite happy to give you that in a table format. Okay, thank you.
Thank you. And again, through you, Mr Mayor, the final question relates to the Sayers Road precinct. So that this is quite a detailed question, so I'm going to try and summarise it. Wyndham City Stadium with 15,000 seats is claimed to be a game changer to the often neglected suburb of Tarneet. However, some recent media articles mentioned on the planned stadium remains in limbo. I request the council should provide a detailed answer. There are a range of specific questions that you've outlined here. My response will cover them off, and I will provide a detailed response to you in writing just for completeness, Arnev. So firstly, those media articles have in fact been incorrect, and it really is a project that council's spending time working through, obviously with our partners in that whole area. It is a game-changing project. It's a value capture project for the city, and it's something that council's particularly excited about. The site is a 63-hectare site, so it's quite large, and the title to approximately 6.5 hectares of land will be provided at no cost in exchange for the building of the Wyndham City Stadium by the Western Melbourne Group to act as the home of the Western United football team. The stadium will also be available for a range of other sporting and cultural events, so will actually be a really significant sports precinct. The stadium, of course, will be one element of that. It's underpinned by a value capture model, as I mentioned earlier. So the deal is funded by the Western Melbourne Group, okay, and that's a deal that's been struck through commercial in confidence as well. So therefore, the detail of that is not available. In terms of the commercial residential development, there will be an area that will be residential on the site, and the Western Melbourne Group will be the responsible developer. The details, again, are commercial in confidence. The Tarneet indoor facility, as nominated in the Riverdale Precinct Structure Plan, is still happening. So this is really about fast tracking the development that was proposed around that site. So it was always going to be a mixed residential, sports, community precinct. So what this project has enabled us to do is to capture that value and be able to deliver on that vision much more quickly, and also look to attract much more investment, into a sports city for the benefit of the Tarneet community, but obviously the broader city and indeed the Western region and Avalon corridor as well. There will be a master plan sort of updated as part of the work that we're doing at the moment, and the early service mix and feasibility investigations are underway to inform that master plan. So we've got a team of people who are working, really hard on making sure that we're meeting our timeframes around this project. That's probably it, but I'll provide that response, as I said, Nev, in writing. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you very much, Madam CEO. Okay, we'll now move to item 11, Councillor Delegates Reports. Item 11.1, again restated, pages 68 to 69 with recommendations on page 69, the attachments on pages 70 to 82. Can I please get a mover? And yep, Councillor Maynard and Councillor Gibbons can be the seconder. With that in mind, are there any councillors that wish to speak to their reports? We'll start with, okay, yep, thank you, Councillor Maynard. With that in mind, are there any other councillors that wish to speak to their reports? Councillor Marcus.
Yes, look, I do think I did this report. No, I wasn't at the last council meeting, but I'd just like to mention a couple of things. Wyndham's War on Waste, and I think what we are doing here in regards to this is extremely beneficial to this city. But I'd just like to congratulate the 4 schools that came into the recycled sculpture competition. What they had to do was go out and collect litter and then make a fish sculpture, which was fantastic. And our local artist, Donna, she wants to be involved in this into the future. And so I just hope that we will continue to do that, to work with our children on. And as I said the other day, we've created this monster and we've got to fix it up. The other item was the Wyndham Learning Festival, where we had Craig Rucastle, who came down and addressed all the people, which was a fantastic day. And he's very keen to work with us in the clothing industry, where 40% of that goes to the RDF. And the other great work that the council officers have done was the Waste Watchers 2019, where 17 families from Tarneet and Truganina were targeted and made sure that they learnt what to recycle and how to recycle it. So to the council officers, Peter McKinnon and Antoinette, thank you very much for being so interested in our environment.
Thank you very much, Councillor Marcus. Are there any other councillors that wish to speak to their reports? There being none, we'll now proceed to a vote. All those in favour? Against? Carried. Item 12, urgent business. There is none. Item 13. Can I please have a mover to suspend standing orders? Councillor Maynard.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Mr. Mayor, I move the following: that pursuant to Section 89(2) of the Local Government Act 1989, standing orders be suspended and this meeting of council be closed to members of the public in order for council to discuss confidential business.
Thank you very much, Councillor Maynard. That will now require members to leave the gallery, so you'll have to depart. Okay, with that in mind, we'll move. Yep, so we'll now move it to a vote in the meantime. Yes, oh, sorry, do you wish to speak on the item? You're seconding it? Great, okay. We'll now move to vote on the matter. All those in favour? Great, all those against?
Blessing my return, Sesame.
Okay, yes.
Mr Mayor, I move that the recommendation of the closed meeting of council with regard to confidential matters be accepted.
Thank you. Excellent. Seconder, Councillor Givens. All those in favour? Excellent. Against? Carried. All right. That will now be the conclusion of our meeting. Time 7:50.